So advocacy, as defined by the Merriam-Webster Dictionary, is the act or process of supporting a cause or proposal. It's the process of advocating. Advocacy is, there's a lot of different types of advocacy. There's big advocacy, there's small advocacy, there's representing yourself as an individual to your doctor, to your school, to your local community. There's also representing yourself or your issue or your loved ones on a big scale in terms of government or even international organizations. So advocacy is big and small. You do advocacy every day in your everyday life when you're standing up for someone or something, yourself or something you believe in. So when we talk about advocacy, it's a very broad term, but today we're talking specifically about congressional advocacy, policy advocacy, and strategic ways to get the systems that govern our country changed.
It's okay to be nervous, especially if it's your first meeting. These folks who you're meeting with, these staffers and even the member themselves, they are very accustomed to kind of how intimidating they can be, and they're very welcoming, they're very understanding. They do this day in and day out, and they understand, and they actually receive a lot of sensitivity training about how overwhelming this can be if it's not your regular day-to-day. So these folks so don't worry if you're nervous. It's okay to be nervous. They're very warm and accepting, so don't feel like you have to put on airs or impress these people. You're just there to be as Erin said, to tell your truth, to be your genuine self, and to communicate with these people human to human.
One thing that I think is so vital to take away, and frankly that a lot of first-time advocates are surprised by when they lobby on Capitol Hill, is really the youth of the key staffers that are making policy decisions that are instrumental in whether it's the healthcare policy or other issues that are really running our country. And so if you get a clean-shaven 25-year-old staffer, that person very well may be handling the healthcare portfolio for an incredibly influential member of Congress and be their key advisor. And so just because you're looking at someone across the Zoom camera who looks like they're young enough to be, your children or grandchildren for that matter, you should take comfort in the fact knowing that the meetings that have been set up are with the influential people in these offices, and your message is getting to the right people when connecting with these staff members.
Absolutely, great point, especially on the House side. They often skew toward younger. These are people writing legislation. They are making decisions for the country, no doubt about it. 3 things to think about as you're coming into the meeting. And this is even true, especially now in a virtual environment. These meetings are being run in 15-minute increments. So you want to go in, you want to be brief, you want to be brilliant, and then you want to be done. So we want to get right to the talking points.
Please don't miss a scheduled meeting. That will reflect extremely poorly on your organization. There will be a phone number listed in your talking point section. If for some reason something comes up on Tuesday and you're not going to be able to participate in this call, call that number and we will make sure to get it taken care of with the office. As long as they're given a heads up, really there's no problem at all. And I'm talking even a 30-minute or 15-minute heads up. Really, any issue that comes up, just make sure to apprise us of that information and we'll relay it to Capitol Hill for you. Don't try to reschedule the meeting on your own because a lot of the groups are sometimes intertwined with other meetings. And so if you try to reschedule your meeting, you might double book somebody else who you're not aware of may also be joining that meeting down the line. One thing we just really hark on is to stay on message, right? You only have 15 minutes. Don't forget that. Introduce yourself, explain why Solve MECFS is here to speak today, and then tell your story. And you really want to emphasize the impact that MECFS has on you your healthcare system, and other constituents in your district. And that will really grab the attention of the staffer from the get-go, rather than, like I said, bogging it down with details earlier. One additional strategy that we like to advocate for is the bluff technique. And what I mean by that is by calling their bluff. So after you introduce yourself, you share your story, what you're here to talk about, what your talking points are, making the ask. Don't be afraid to then finish the conversation before you turn it back over to the staffer to say, can your office support us? Can your boss, if you're speaking to a staffer, can your boss support these issues, or can they, can they be a resource for us? Totally appropriate to ask that. Don't assume the staff know too little or too much about your topic. What I mean by that is, you are meeting with a healthcare staffer, yes. Are they familiar with MECFS? Possibly, possibly not. They may be new to the role, right? So a great way to start from the bottom and work your way up, because again, you only have 15 minutes and you want to be able to explain everything to them clearly, is open up with, are you familiar with MECFS? Very easy question, yes or no, right? If they say yes, then you can expand upon that. Oh, great. Well, how familiar are you with it? They'll give you an answer, and from there, that will give you a good starting point in terms of explaining the condition and explaining the consequences, and then going into your real world examples. If they say no, you obviously are the experts. You will know then how to start from the bottom, build up within, probably 3 to 4 minutes, a nice story about how to convey the conditions, how it affects you, your neighbors, your family, your friends, and then you can transition from there into the talking points. If they are not familiar with it, you will end up more than likely doing the majority of the talking, which is okay, because at that point you want this to be extremely educational for the staffer. Because if they're not aware of what this is, again, you're going to be the expert, and so they're going to be relying on you for all the information.
Keeping the relationship. Always offer to be that resource. I can't tell you how many times we say this in meetings. When we're walking out the door, Emily Taylor's phenomenal at this. Hey, let us know what we can do. Solve MECFS. If you have a hearing coming up, if you have questions about this, reach out to us. We can get you the expert you need. So that should be an ask of the office. Please call us. If you run into issues or you have questions, let me know how we can be helpful. Before that call ends, make sure if you're a constituent of that congressperson, you're forging that relationship, you want to leave your contact information. Do not say, we'll see you next year. Next time at the fly-in, next year at the fly-in, we'll see you again. No. Say, do you mind if I follow up in a few weeks? I'd like to just make sure to see if you need anything. And then the best staff contact info from the call, sometimes you might be talking to the member and you can say, Congresswoman Herrera Butler, can you tell me, should I reach out to Emily? Should I reach out to Sam? Who should I reach out to about these issues? And having that contact, having that umbilical cord to the office is going to be major, major, major.
So one of the things that you can think about this weekend and up until Tuesday is how you want to present your story. We don't unfortunately have time to talk about everything that encompasses your story, since these are 15 minutes, maybe even shorter, and we have a lot of people that are in these meetings. So you're going to want to think about how this affects you personally as a person with MECFS, as a caregiver, as a person with long COVID, whatever your story is, you want to present that to the person you're speaking with. And use specific examples. So specific examples on how MECFS or long COVID has impacted you and how these specific issues that we're talking about have impacted you. So a few examples that you could use are, how has a delayed or misdiagnosis impacted your health? What are the financial impacts on you and your family? That can be a hard conversation, but that economic impact can be really important to people you're talking to understand what's going on. Another one is, how has this affected your family and your relationships? If you're a caregiver, talking about it, talking about your family and the things that you're going through. And then, what does research or medical education mean to your day-to-day life? So if your doctor knows more about long COVID, or if your doctor knows more about MECFS, how would that impact your life day to day? One tool that you can use when you're thinking about telling your story is a framework. And one of those frameworks is a value, a problem, a solution, and an action. So if you have the energy, you can even write it down ahead of time to make sure that you mention the points that you want to when you're in the meeting. So you can talk about your 3-sentence story. When you got sick, how long you've been sick, and what a specific example of you being sick is. A problem that you want them to solve. The solution that you believe in, which is our bill, the thing that you want them to co-sign, the action you want them to take, how that action did, would, or could have helped you. If those things on the talking points that we're going to talk about it later have impacted you before, mention that. Mention how useful that's been. Or if it hasn't, talk about how that would have made a change in your life. And then repeat that action, repeat what you want them to do, leave them with something they can take action on after you tell them your story. We want to make a focus on a few key things. That emotional and human connection is really the most important thing. Like Stuart and Shay said, that's what they're going to remember after these meetings. They have so many meetings in a day, so they're really going to remember you, your personal connection, that story that you told them. That's more important than any statistic that we can bring into there. The shared experience with others suffering complex chronic illnesses. We have a big group this year. We have over 800 people participating in Advocacy Day, and everyone brings their own stories. 900 now. And that is a lot of diverse experiences. And we don't all share the same problems and the same experiences, but we do share the same concerns, a few of the same concerns, and that's what we're coming in together. I would use a sports metaphor, but I know anything about sports, so think of like the Avengers. We all have our different concerns and our different illnesses, MECFS, long COVID, dysautonomia, but we're coming together as the Avengers for this one key thing, and that's what we want to focus on for this Advocacy Day. And that thing is the post-viral implications, what's going on with long COVID, how that impacts MECFS, dysautonomia. That's what we're talking about. And that brings us to the COVID-19 Long Haulers Act, which is the thing we're talking about, the need for data-driven policy solutions, and how this will help you and others like you. Keep in mind that for every one of the 900 people that are going to be in those meetings, there are thousands of people who weren't able to because they're too sick to be there. So we have to represent the people who can't be in that room as well. So think about that also when you're sharing your story, and that story is other people's story as well. So there's some things to not worry about. There's a lot of things to keep in mind, but don't worry about the numbers and the details. We are giving them this material ahead of time, and you can refer to your materials. You don't have to memorize those things, and we can always follow up with them afterwards. So focus on your story, your experiences. Don't focus on or don't worry about the challenges that this act doesn't fix. We know that this is not enough. We know that this is a stepping stone, and there are so many more problems out there that we need to solve. But this is the thing that will get us there. So this is what we're focusing on. Don't focus on the definitions or the acronyms. There are so many acronyms out there. If you get close enough, if you speak to generalities, that's perfect. Don't worry about saying everything. These meetings are going to go fast, especially if you have a lot of people in your group. Everyone is going to want to share a piece of it. So don't feel like you have to say everything. There are other people in your group, and this is also a continuing conversation. So start with what's most important to you in case you run out of time. So start with the main points, your one sentence, and your story.